Work on A. You should take some notes on that. And I'll start with A1, and I'll tell you what I think you should have or could have, or a lot of people would have done, and then we'll see how well you did. And I would, as we go, I'd like to tell you kind of how we score too, how they're going to score it, so that you get an idea of how to do the next one even better. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
In number one, the function that they give you is e to the sine of x minus 2 cosine 3x. And the graphing calculator is allowed for this. And the first thing they want you to do is sketch f prime. In other words, sketch the graph of this. So they're expecting you to do it in a window that is about 0 to 4 for your x range, and then about -2 to 5 for your y range. And if you do that, and everybody should have been able to do that, because you just type that in your calculator. Looks like the answer looks like this. Something like that. 2 humps in there. And that shouldn't have been too hard for you to sketch. Out of most likely 27 points for the day, or for this sheet, or for this test, probably be worth a total of 27 points. You most likely could have had 1 for that.
Nice.
Yeah. We're starting. Then when they ask you on what interval is it increasing, you just tell where you think it's increasing, and they're really asking you for the x's of where it's increasing. Notice they ask on what interval is f increasing. This is the graph of f prime, so they're going to trick some people there. Don't say it's increasing from here to here. That would be where the slope is increasing. But they said where is f increasing? Wherever the slope is positive on this one would be the answer. So you want to go from here to here, you see, the positive part of this graph. I think the correct answer for that is 0.283 to 3.76. On the AP test, they love 3 digits. 3 digits after the decimal. You gotta start doing 3 digits after the decimal. So that's the answer to, I think, question B then. Is 0.283 to 3.760. Round it to the nearest 3 digits. If you had that, there's another point for you. You're now up to 2 out of 27, and I feel like those were very doable for your average student. If you didn't do those, you just never tried, or you're quite behind in understanding, or you did something dumb, which anybody can do. Then it says justify your answer. So what you're going to say then is why you answered that. You're going to say from there to there is the answer because, well, something like when f prime is positive, f is increasing. Knowing that was the key to this question. Of course, if you would have known that, you would have gotten it right. So this kind of goes together. So that'll be another point for that. So that's, in a way, 2 points for B there. If you did both of those, the answer correct, and justified it, get bing bing, 2 more points. But remember, on the free response test on AP, you get a point for writing that. They actually are expecting a sentence. Real people grade these, not computers. The AP free response has a bunch of trained teachers looking for certain things out of a rubric. C, part C here, you had to say at what values does F have local maximums? This is not F, this is F prime. Don't pick that spot and that spot. That'll make you look like an amateur. So we have to pick, decide how we can look at this and figure out where the original might have had a max. Well, remember on the original F, if its slope is going positive, and then the slope is 0, and then the slope is negative, that would be a sign of a max, right? So we're studying this, where was the slope positive, and then switched to negative? Isn't it like right here? The slope was positive, then it came through 0, and then it went to negative. So one of the places it has a max is at x equals 3.760. I think there was a max there. And then any place else? Nice, good call. There's another max over at the left end, because if the slope was negative and it turned positive, that means the graph of the original went like this. So the very left end was at least a local max, you know? So you have to name that one too. And you probably could get a point for each. So there's a couple more points of the 27 that could be had. Now remember, the free response is kind of the hardest part of the test, and if you can pick away and get a few of the points and miss a few, you'll still come out pretty good. So go for everything you can. Your first reaction will be, I don't know if I can do any of this. That'll just be your first reaction, but then you study it a bit and, well, maybe I can get a point here and a point there. That's got to be your approach. Then let's take a look at D. For D, they said how many points of inflection? Well, what happens to slope at points of inflection? Okay, the slope is equal to 0 at points of inflection. And not only is it equal to 0, it must be switching, from negative to positive or positive to negative. Concavity has to be changing. How many different places is that happening here?
Does slope equal 0 at points of inflection?
The concavity has to be changing. No, the slope does not have to equal 0. The concavity has to be changing. So we have to figure out, how can we decide on cavity changes? Here the slope is negative, and it switches to positive. And it's getting steeper and steeper, and then less steep. Yes.
Can we just do the second derivative?
Like that. Let's do that. It's not that hard, is it?
We just have to recast it.
Huh?
You just type it in your
Calculator.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to graph it or just type it
Or
in?
you can graph it, and then just go across it. Yeah.
Right, I'd like you to describe what that looks like to me. And you're gonna put in then y1 equals fn integrate?
It's like dy1 over dx.
And then it'll graph that for you. You can show me the graph?
Yeah, how do we do that on our calculator again?
It's
Go over to your y1.
Math 8.
Math 8, you say?
Yeah.
And then we use the variables button.
And he got a graph that
Use
looks
the
like
variables button
this.
And go to function, and then you should put in y1. It's your derived y1.
Okay.
Okay, and then before we do that, that's right though. Yeah.
Okay. This is the graph of f double prime. What is that saying? What is that graph saying? Okay, so where are the inflections on here?
On the points right across that area.
So you're gonna call it for 1, 2, 3? All right, that's correct. There's 3, and this is concave up, concave down, concave up, concave down. I mean, I know this curve looks like it's concave down, but because it's above the axis, because f prime is positive, wherever f prime is positive, it's concave up. The original is. So then for D, they're saying how many points of inflection? So you get a point for saying 3. And then you have to say why, or how you know it. And simply say something like, dy dx maybe it's better this way. In fact, you should say it changes signs. The reason you should say that is because if it just did this, that would not be an inflection, because for an inflection it has to switch from concave up to concave down, or vice versa. And just a kiss is not an inflection there. It's got to switch from concave up to concave down. It's got to cross. So for your justification, they're going to give you another point. Probably 2 more there. So far, then that was, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points there possible on number 1?
Is that just on the answer?
Yes. You ready for 2? Can we go on to number 2? Oh, just a curiosity, how many of you feel you got 3 or 4 points out of that one? All right. You can grab some points there. I'm very optimistic about your overall score. Let's look at number 2. Okay, notice it's important that you spot right away that this is the rate of sales of a new software product. And they want you to find C and K. So we have S is equal to C, E to the K. Then we have to find C and K. Anybody want to start this with me? Anybody have a suggestion?
S is 25.
All right, S is 2.5 because S is in thousands. I believe it says. So S is measured in thousands, so 2.5 thousandths is equal to CE. And that's when, Mitch? When are we getting
3 months.
Hmm?
Every 3 months.
When is the 2,500?
At 1.
It says initially. Initially means at the start. I think that's a 0. So I think we have that for a hint right there, don't we? When T is 0, S is 2,500. I feel like that's enough to figure out the C. What's anything to the 0 power? So you could show work like this to say that C is equal to 2.5. How can we figure out K?
We know that after 3 months, the S has doubled.
So I think you're suggesting that when T is 3, this will be up to 5,000, and we already have found C to be 2.5. In other words, E to the 3K has to be 2. And some people are bright enough to just start with that. If you're doubling it every 3 months, that means every 3K has to be like times 2. But I prefer to see that step in there. It helps me. It isn't quite done yet, I still have to find K, but this is the K that would give you doubling every 3 months. How do we solve something like that again? Anybody remember that?
Log.
You guys are all over that. I think it's the ln of 2 then, which is log base E equals 3K. So K is equal to ln of 2 over 3. Somebody have a decimal for that?
2.231.
That's what the answer book says. So you're gonna get a point for that, and a point for that. And they might give you another point for making it halfway through there. You know, if you made a mistake, but it started right, you might get another point. Because they have to get 27 somewhere. Some things are worth 2. I'm ready for B then. Question B was, find the average rate of sales for the first year. How can you get the average of a year that's varying through the year? Integral of what?
That's a good question.
Could always try the, times what it is after 12 months, and then do the initial, like do the slope thing, how many is sold over how long, so.
Okay. How would we find the sales for 12 months?
Zero from
We have the equation S equals 2.5 e to the 2.31 t.
They really like these official scoring people. If you jot down the nicely written integral that you use to get the answer, they don't care about the work usually. If you put down that equals and then the number that you get for it, especially in the calculator portion, they don't need to see any work. They just want to know what you started with to get your answer. You probably get a point for each. What is the answer to that? 200 and what?
They want 1,000 or in the 100?
Well, we just got to make sure we know what we have.
Well, you get like 162.236. But then they want too much sales in your thousands.
Okay, it's good that you're remembering that's thousands, right? And what is this number? 162,000 stands for the sales for a year. How do we find the average?
5 by 12.
All right. So what are we going to get there?
13.5196.
Now remember, they like 3 digits, so we're going to make that 0.20, I believe. And that's going to be thou, right? So I think the correct answer is going to be around 13,520. And just don't do any rounding that you don't have to do. You see what the answer book says here. They said 13,525, so they didn't even round that off. That's 13.525 thousandths. So keep your answer, round it off way at the end.
Per month or so?
That's per month.
See, this is per year, So divided by 12 is per month. And you should probably put a label on there that says units per month. Most likely it's a point for the answer, and a point for this setup here of how to get the answer. So in other words, if you set this up, you get a point. Maybe even another point for having just the right limits on there. Some people go 1 to 12 for some reason, you know. And
I think it's 25.
25?
Or 20. Maybe.
How does that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
okay.
guessing just don't even round that off.
I didn't do this, so it comes out to 13.5196.
Maybe right here, just leave that as ln of 2 over 3. Don't round anything off.
Yeah, that'll get it.
All right,
Oh, yes, yeah.
so
Do they allow for margin of error like that?
they usually go 3 digits, and if you round off in the middle of the answer, you might not get the full credit. So don't round anything off or use, you know, like if you're using in the middle of the problem here, don't use your 3 digits. If you want 3 digits perfection at the end, 3 digits of perfection in the middle isn't going to cut it. Go like 5 or 6 here if you feel like you have to chop it off. Because things deteriorate when you reuse them. Alright, next one is using the midpoint rule, write an expression that approximates 4 to 7 of S and T. I think for that you want to realize that we're doing 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. So it's like a graph of 3 sections. This wouldn't be part of your work. Now I'm just trying to show you. That we're doing slices. And if we're doing mid-rams, like we studied L-rams, R-rams, and M-rams, mid, how did we find those again?
Wait.
Yeah, we did not just average the 4 and 5 values, did we?
No.
So we're going to have to do 2 point, let's see, we have to do an integral on that, don't we?
Are you talking about doing Riemann sum?
Yeah, Riemann sum. So we just put in
4.5, 5.5, 6.5.
2.5 e to the ln of 2 over 3 times 4.5. That'll tell us the height right here. And get us our first rectangle. Plus 2.5 e to the ln of 2 over 3 times 5.5 plus 2.5 e to the ln of 2 over 3, 6.5.
That's the midpoint rule?
Yeah, that's the one that finds the heights at midpoints of each rectangle.
So MRAM is midpoint rule.
Yes.
So that's your answer.
And then you're supposed to take that times how wide each rectangle is. So we're gonna go 1 times that because that's the width of our rectangles. They might like to wanna see that 1 just to know that you're remembering you gotta go times how wide the rectangles are. So you probably should have that on there. And even though many would just assume that you don't have to do anything because they're 1 wide, show them that you know they're 1 wide. So that would be the expression then right there for the answer. And then explain the meaning of that. What would that give you? Like why might someone even maybe want to calculate that particular sum? What is that?
That's the amount of product produced between the months 4 and 7.
All right, that's the amount of product produced between the months of 4 and 7, or maybe the second quarter, or product. Is this sold or produced?
Sold.
Let's talk dates. Sometimes this is kind of tricky to figure out the date. What date is 0? January 1? What date is 2 then? 3? 4? So this is the product from April.
That's what
Yeah, you definitely jumped.
What did I do?
It should be May then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if January
If
1 is
January is-
0.
January is 0, so 1 is
February.
2, 3, 4. That's where it starts, isn't it? Okay.
Why is the interval not from 0 to 1 then?
And then 7 would be
August.
May 1 to August 1.
Back to January.
See what the answer book says. Says that would represent the units sold in May, June, and July.
So from May 1
Same thing, right?
Yep.
Why is the integral from 0 to 12 instead of 0 to 11 then? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, also it'd be to the December
Because
1.
11 would just be at December 1.
Yeah.
Maybe get a 3.
All right.
Makes sense.
Sign my name.
I'd like a real nice looking bit of work done on this B. Now, B is without the calculator. Well, there is one spot in there I feel like they made a mistake